What up, everybody? This is Death by Dynasty, DBD Ty here. First off, I want to say a belated happy birthday to DBD Dan. DBD Dan is out in LA right now celebrating, so he gave me the keys for the week to take over the show here. So you know what that means. We got to get after it. So what we're going to do for today's episode, just going to kind of go over some news I hit. I feel like this has been a real busy week with some news. So we'll hit that and then go over Thursday's game. And then later on in the week, I'll do a complete breakdown of every game, go through there and what you need to know, as well as I will go live on Sunday to answer any start and sits questions that you have right before the game. So maybe Dan will make an appearance at one of those. So let's get after it. To start off, we got the most recent news just broke a couple hours ago. Cam Akers to the Vikings. Now, before I even get into this is what I got to say. The fantasy football world has become so reactionary. Maybe it's because I've just started diving more into the social media aspect of fantasy football. I've always kind of done my own research and not been as involved in the social world. And now I'm just seeing it in real time. People will go from having not wanting anything to do with the player to all of a sudden having them in the top of their rankings over one single move, over 1 week. And I think that's one, obviously you shouldn't be doing that. And I think there's a balance. So at the same time where you shouldn't be stagnant, but you also shouldn't be that reactionary. Take everything with a grain of salt. All that to be said, Cam Akers going to the Vikings, if anything, obviously is not good for Alexander Mattison. Me and Dan were both, or Dan and I should say, Dan and I were both saying that Alexander Mattison should not, as soon as he became the lead back there once Dalvin left, everyone started to overvalue him. He was never going to be the guy there. They get Cam Akers. I don't think Cam Akers is going to be a top 15 running back going forward. I think this is very much going to be a split. I think this is still a very pass heavy offense and an offense that you can't guarantee touchdowns with, especially with strong tight end and TJ Hawkinson. Jefferson's going to get his. Addison's a touchdown machine, it looks like. So I just feel like there's a lot of targets there, and Cam Akers obviously has had some good games there. I've seen nothing to say that he is going to be some sort of elite talent. So I think he still is in that, I think, best case scenario RB2, maybe high end RB2, but he's definitely not an RB1. I think Alexander Mattison gets lowered to a mid to low end RB3 flex area type running back. Next up, a similar reactionary market situation. We're going to go Kareem Hunt signing to go along with the injury, obviously, to Nick Chubb, and then Jerome Ford having a very solid game on Monday. Now, I'm going to start off by saying Jerome Ford is the guy there in Dynasty. Even in redraft, he is going to be the running back that is going to probably get the most points in that backfield. I say probably. I do think there's a world where Kareem Hunt becomes the lead back there. Do I think that's likely? No, I do not. But with that being said, Kareem Hunt will get touches. What I'm failing to understand is why people think that it's either going to be Jerome Ford's going to get every single carry or that people think he's going to be a bust. What the most likely situation is, in my opinion, is that Jerome Ford's going to get the bulk. He's going to get a lot, but Kareem Hunt's still going to get a lot of that passing game. He's still going to be involved every other drive, every couple drives at least, and he's going to take some touchdowns away. I think they both very well, in the best case scenario, be fantasy relevant options. I think more likely than not, they're kind of plug and play guys from week to week. Probably Jerome Ford might have some week to week flex value, but I think best case scenario, you got Jerome Ford as maybe a mid-tier RB2. Best case scenario, I think most likely he's an RB3, and I think Kareem Hunt's a bye-week filler type player, but I do think he's worth having on your team. And I think a lot of people went out and kind of started getting him the last couple of weeks here too. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You'll see as it goes on. Oh, actually, no, it's not. That's not all I'm going to say about it. Jerome Ford, if you have Jerome Ford or Kareem Hunt for that matter, you're not starting him this week. That Titans defense has shut down every running back they faced so far. This team's not going to be any different. I think Jerome Ford's good, but he's not Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb's obviously he's someone I'm going to take every single time, no matter who they're going up against. But Jerome Ford is he's a pretty good running back at this point. That's all I can say about him. And I'm not starting him this week against Tennessee, not starting Kareem Hunt. The week after, though, that's when you want to plug them in, potentially both of them. Now, last up in the news category before we get into Thursday's game, we're going to go with who I think is going to have the breakout game of their career, and that's going to be Kendra Miller. This is lining up beautifully to be his breakout game because Jamal Williams unfortunately got hurt. Good thing, not serious. It's a hamstring. Obviously, those aren't fun, but they're saying maybe a couple weeks for him. Kamara's still out a game, and they said Kendra Miller was actually healthy for last game, and the only reason he didn't play was for precautionary reasons, that he's full go. They've already taken him completely off the injury report, so he's gonna get his. I was huge on him early on in the offseason. Then he kind of started to fall a little bit for me, but he's a running back who can make explosive plays. If he goes out there and busts one tomorrow, watch him shoot up that board. So Kendra Miller breakout game. Don't say I didn't warn you. Now let's move on to Thursday night game, San Francisco and New York. Now, let me tell you this. San Francisco isn't as good as people tell you they are, or as what the media wants to make you think. Now, following that up, New York is not as bad as they have looked. They look like a high school team at best for the first 6 quarters of the season. They're not that bad. But with the injuries to Saquon and their offensive line, they could be in for another rough one, especially going up against a good team in San Francisco. Now, with that being said, San Francisco has a lot of holes. They are not this juggernaut that people want to make you believe. There's not a lot of players I feel comfortable starting in this game. Brandon Ayuk with the injury definitely scares me. They say it's a pain tolerance thing. If he gets hit hard one time, I think that he could just be taken out of the game there if he even does play. Deebo Samuel is the guy who I think you play him if you have him, especially unless you're super stacked. But I'm not excited about that starting anyway. I'm staying away from Brock Purdy. And I know we've been doing a lot of picks. We've been on the final round with Jordan, or it's the final round. Shout out, it's the final round. And my pick for this game is Brock Purdy under 227.5 passing yards. Yes, the Giants defense is bad, but they did turn it around a little bit. I think they're going to be playing with some juice to them. They're starting to feel disrespected, and Purdy's only hit that number 3 times in his entire career and none at all this year. So I don't think in a primetime game when he has not looked good, when I'm talking about holes for San Francisco, I'm talking about a lot with Brock Purdy. He's missed wide open receivers deep. His deep game has not been accurate, which is going to limit his top yard potential, of course, and especially with Ayuk being hurt, and I think Ayuk's not going to have that same type of impact that he usually does. Outside, I think Ayuk's a top 20, top 15 wide receiver at this point, but not this week. Who I do think is the best player in this whole game, who's going to go crazy, is CMC. I think my original take was wrong on CMC. I was nervous about drafting him in the top 3 because they talked about having load management. There are a lot of weapons there, and I thought Elijah Mitchell was going to be more involved. CMC is probably going to be the best player in fantasy. I think easily top 3, and he's going to go crazy this week. He's obviously, you're starting him anyway, but I like him, and I like his props if you're someone who's into the pick side of things. For New York, I guess I'll say something positive about them. Obviously, Saquon looked good up until the injury. It's really great news. Sounds like he's not going to be out as long as it looked originally, maybe a couple weeks, which I think is a smart thing to do for the long run. Jalen Hyatt last game, he kind of showed some sparks of what he can do. I like him for dynasty leagues. I think he's a long-term play for sure. Someone who I am staying away from, who you might be debating starting, are both tight ends in this game. Obviously, if you have them, you're probably starting them. You don't have other options. Darren Waller, I think, is going to get his. I'm not super excited about him. I don't think he's what people thought he was at the start of the year. But someone who I'm completely out on from a tight end, and I'd trade him right now if you have him for anything you get, and that's George Kittle. He is a great NFL tight end. He's a great blocker. He's also a great guy. I don't want to sound like I'm hating, but as a fantasy tight end, he's just not someone who I want at the value he's at. And I think you can just trade him for a lot. So I'm getting rid of Kittle if he were on my team. So With that being said, I think the Niners destroy the Giants tomorrow. But there are some good fantasy plays in there, and it is a very fantasy focused game, so it should be a fun one. So that's that. You'll probably be seeing this Thursday morning. So hopefully you watch this before the game. If not, you still got some news at the start. I don't know, but I'm going to be back probably tomorrow or Saturday for the complete Sunday breakdown. Maybe we'll get Dan to phone in here from LA, give us an In-N-Out review. My opinion, In-N-Out is so overrated. I lived in the Bay Area for 3 years. That's all I'm going to say. But what I will say, I'll end on a positive note. I just watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, Paramount Plus, great movie. All right. Peace.